Hello, I am Prometheus, this is Book Zealots, and today I am doing a map review of Inkheart. Oh my goodness gracious, there is so much to talk about. We start with Meggie, the main character, 12 years old, asleep in bed on a rainy night. Perfect starting for a mysterious story. She wakes up, decides to go out and look at the window because that's what you do on rainy nights, and she sees a mysterious man with 3 scars just standing in the rain. That's disturbing enough. So she goes to his father after stumbling over some books in his workshop. He's a bookbinder. And as always, the wisest choice when seeing random strangers in your yard is to open the door and let them in. It turns out her father knows this person, who is referred to as Dustfinger. They go to his workshop. Dustfinger starts rambling about a man named Capricorn and warning that he is after her father. She listens in. Not supposed to, but she does. Random 12-year-old stuff. They agree to leave at 1:30 p.m. after Meggie leaves school the next day. Dustfinger leaves, Meggie goes back to bed, and all is well. 5:30 in the morning, her father already has their van packed, and they are ready to go. Unfortunately, Dustfinger has predicted this random turn of events, and hops along, and they go to their aunt's house with so many windows that you will go crazy before you finish counting them. This is an important mention. She sees her father pass off a book. This book she saw him buy at a store, not in the book. They stay for about 3 days at their aunt's house. Her name is Eleanor. And Dustfinger turns out to be a flamey throwy guy. He agrees in 3 days' time, at the night, he'll show Meggie a beautiful show. And when this happens, Mo is kidnapped by 3 men in black hoods, and Eleanor is left with a book because she was so curious about the book she decided to take it out of its hiding place and read it just as these guys kidnapped. Convenient timing? Yes. Dustfinger also disappears. They report it to the police. The police can't do anything because they don't know who this person is, where they're going, or what their motivations are. And 3 days later, Dustfinger turns up and realizes that the book is still in Eleanor's possession. Why? Because she's a bookworm. She loves books. She'll hoard them. Her entire house is filled with books. I didn't mention that, but that's important to know. They hop in her car because Dustfinger can't figure out how to work the things. And they drive to a mysterious place in the middle of the mountains, over a road, where they run into a man with a knife, and a bunch of dogs, and a man with a flat nose. This is also important for the later story. They then go to this point, and Dustfinger leads them into a church steeple that is painted red to a man in a red robe, who is named Capricorn. Yes, this is Capricorn. At this point, Capricorn takes the book from Eleanor, who was very vocal about it, and throws about 20 other books in a brazier with some gasoline and decides to have a barbecue. This does not go over well with Dustfinger, who was promised the book in return for his services of leading Mo, Meggie's father, over to them. He tries to reach it, damages his finger. Capricorn's very angry about this because now they can't have Juggle Night, and Juggle Night is such a fun night. So Dustfinger goes to get fixed. Meggie and Eleanor are thrown in a cell with Mo, at which point he explains the whole story, and that 9 years previously, he had been reading the book that had just been thrown called Inkheart. Cue title card. And he explains that as he was reading it, he accidentally read out the 2 main villains and the main character, named Basta, the man with the knife, who kidnapped him, Capricorn, the man obsessed with red clothes, and Dustfinger, the fire eater. He decided that this was bad as he also lost his 2 cats and, more importantly, his wife in the process, which concerned him greatly. He didn't understand what was going on. Somehow his voice read them into the book, out of the book, and his wife and the 2 cats in. My sympathy is with the cats. He then tries desperately to read his wife back out of the book multiple times until accidentally reads the mailman. This mailman will never come up again. What happened to the mailman? He decides this is a bad idea, and he forgets about reading her out, although he tries to keep his hands on the book. And then, 4 years after that incident, Dustfinger shows back up on his doorstep, begging to be read back, as he is not doing well in their world. It's something about cars. He can't quite get used to the concept of cars. Anyway, the next morning, they are introduced back into the church with Capricorn, now in a red suit. Can you just imagine, in a full red suit? And they are introduced to Darius, which turns out is also a silver tongue, capable of reading people in and out. This man is also known as Stumbletongue. He is given the Treasure Island and the 1001 Nights, Lawrence of... I can't remember the name of the title. I always get Lawrence of Arabia. Point is that with Treasure Island, they read out treasure.
You mean Arabian Nights?
Yes, that one. In the Arabian Nights, they accidentally read out some poor kid and lose one of their men in the process. Oops. Anyway, Dustfinger, now deciding that Capricorn is not in his best interests, helps them escape using Eleanor's car, which they then crash, run through the mountains, infested with snakes, by the way, Basta and Flatnose try and track them. They get stuck in an old farmhouse, dilapidated. They're captured by Mo, Dustfinger, Farid, that's the name of the kid that fell out of the story, Eleanor, and Maggie. They're tied up. They go and walk to the nearest settlement where Eleanor decides to go back home. Mo and Maggie go to the author. We will get to him in a second. And Dustfinger and Farid kind of do their own thing and then decide to go to the author as well. The author of Inkheart is believed to have another copy of the book. I know. Is believed to have another copy of the book. But it turns out he doesn't. As soon as he sees Dustfinger, Dustfinger freaks out because he doesn't want to know this.
Sorry.
Alright. Now, Finaglio sees Dustfinger. Dustfinger runs off and decides to go try and get the book Inkheart because Capricorn left one book because he wants a little friend from the book to come back out and play in this world. Mo and Maggie decide to rent the house that Finaglio owns, and Maggie plays around with her grandchild. Now, you remember how Eleanor decided to go back to her farmhouse? Well, Capricorn left her a little surprise. He burned her library. It was very sad. So Mo goes to pick up Eleanor from the airport, and she is so distraught she wants the head of Capricorn on a silver platter, while Maggie and Finaglio decide to just chill, as things do. But unfortunately, Maggie decides to pick up a book, Peter Pan, and reads out Tinkerbell. This is not good. Conveniently, at the same time that Basta and Flatnose show up, they see the fairy, realize that she can read stuff out of books too. Perfect, she's far easier to manipulate. So they take her, the writer, and decide to take them back to Capricorn. Now, Finaglio, the author, blackmails Capricorn into not killing him immediately because he knows all the funny little things that Capricorn keeps secret, locked in a box, thrown in the bottom of the river. He realizes that Mortala, the magpie, who's been a servant wandering around the story for quite some time, is Capricorn's mother. So they lock them up together, and we'll leave them alone for a little while. Now, you remember how I said that Dustfinger and Farid ran off? Ah, yes. Well, Farid wants to learn about how to wield fire the same way that Dustfinger does. While doing that, they watch Capricorn's village and receive 3 mysterious missives from a maid who Dustfinger knew from Capricorn's fortress way back in the day. While observing the village, they see Mo and Eleanor, who found out that Capricorn had kidnapped his daughter, and they decide to go after her. This interferes with Dustfinger's plan, so he holds them hostage tied up to a tree for a little while. It's okay. They spend about 2 days like this until Eleanor is captured by the Black Jackets, Capricorn's underlings. Dustfinger is also captured in this raid. The maid is captured, and Mo and Farid have to run around doing their own thing. It's at this point we realize that the maid is the wife of Mo, the Silver Tongue, because she was read out by Darius, the Stutter Tongue. At this point, Dustfinger is, we'll get back to him. Finaglio tells Maggie that he and Mo were trying to figure out how to change a story's ending. And they do this by testing it on the tin soldier. Instead of being melted down in a furnace, he now lives happily ever after with a ballerina paper. I haven't read the Nutcracker, so don't ask me. Maggie then asks to see Eleanor, which she realizes is in the prison. As she does, she goes over here, Dustfinger escapes, Basta gets captured, and is put there permanently, as he's let them escape twice now. And Dustfinger runs off, runs into Mo and Farid, and they come up with a nasty, dastardly little scheme that's coming around. Then, finally, the grand finale. Oh boy. Capricorn and the author are sitting in a throne area. The magpie, also known as Mortala, and Maggie are near where Inkheart is. Maggie is going to read out the terrible monster that is roaming around, the Shadow. And Dustfinger, Mo, and Farid decide the best way to take a man is to burn his castle down. So that's what they do. They engage in their arsenic. Whatever. Basta, the maid, and Eleanor are put in a cage for the Shadow's first meal in this world. Lovely. So Maggie has a slight piece of paper in her sleeve, which is going to read Capricorn's death and all of his men, and the Shadow in the one fell swoop, written by the author. As she reads out the Shadow, the author disappears. We don't know where he goes. Goodbye. The Shadow comes out, very nasty thing, tries to eat the maid, but Maggie stumbles on the last few words. So Mo, after setting fire to a great number of Capricorn's village and castle, hops over, reads the last word, Capricorn dies, the Shadow disappears into the multiple different victims that it's eaten over the years. Farid and Dustfinger take the book, run off. Basta and Mortalis somehow survive the mass murder of the reading. They run off. Mo, Eleanor, the maid, also known as Mo's wife and Maggie's mother, and, yeah, I mentioned Eleanor, take a bus with the remaining creatures from the shadow, and they go off, and happily ever after. Thus ends Inkheart. Please come back for Ink Spell and Ink Death. This is Bookzealots. Thank you for watching.